Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back. And we're going to do another episode of the Greenhorn's Guide to Logging and Forestry. Last time we were playing, we had showed the operation of the processor and how to pile your logs for the easiest loading. Today we're going to be going over the loader itself. So we have the Tiger Cat 880 with the fixed clam attachment, which is probably the most popular attachment we use for loading. Basically, the operation of the loader is to get this wood that we've processed all nicely onto the truck so that it can go to the mill and be unloaded. In this same episode, I'm going to do the unloading of the wood from the truck to the mill, just so we can cover all the loading and unloading in one episode. So we want to fire this guy up and get it into a good position. So normally what I'll do is I will try to stay parallel to the load. So I'll be just a little bit off center on this end of the load so that I have access, easy grabbing room, all that fun stuff. And the placement of the truck is also important. Again, there's so much controversy over which way is the best way to do, loads and which way is the best way to, park your trucks. I say whatever works best for you, you go for it. But I'll show you what I do that works best for me, and you guys can decide if that's a technique that works for you. So, because I can't get too close to that pile, I can only bring this truck about yay far. I generally try to line that middle stake up with the center of the loader from this view. So you can see that that center stake is lined up right with the center of the machine itself. Now, like I said, I'm a little bit far away from the load for my liking, so I'm going to readjust myself here a bit. This is good right here. Perfect. So that's a good happy room for me. Oops, sorry. Let's do it. Micro adjustments here. And now what you want to do is so we're doing long logs first. Long logs are probably the most difficult ones to sort out if you want to do what I'm doing. So there's two techniques you can do. I'm going to do kind of an advanced technique and just a basic technique. So as you can see, these logs that we have right now are just very simple, straight logs that'll fit on this trailer, no problem. The idea is you want to get them between the stakes and drop them right in the middle. Book. So that's basic log operation. Very simple. You want to pick them up off the ground. You want to put them on the truck so that they're ready to be brought back to the mill. Now, if you want to go a little bit of a step further to keep things a little more easily organized, what I do is I'll put the big logs at the bottom and I'll try to arrange it so that we're straight. Again, the technique for loading is something you will develop after you play long enough. You'll start to get more comfortable with loading. I'll pick up a couple trees here. You want to kind of pick them up in the middle point. So this is another important thing. So see how that one's kind of falling down because I didn't really pick it up in the middle? So let's go like this. So another thing that's really easy for loading is these machines have locking straps on them. So if you want to play things easy and you're new at stuff, you can grab this tree, bring it here, and then hit L on your keyboard, and it'll actually lock the load or lock the tree so it doesn't fall out of the grapple. That's kind of like a cheat mode to keep it easier for new people loading so they don't lose their grab. But the important part is you want to grab a log in the kind of center of where the weight is. If I pick it up on this end too far, you see how it just falls down on that end. And same difference if I pick it up on this end, it falls down that end. So you want to kind of find where the middle point on that log is, where it's not too weighted in any direction, where it sits pretty decently. And then you can throw your locking strap on to make it easy for you so it doesn't move around. And then you can just throw it onto the truck. There we go, about there. And you guys can figure out whatever the most comfortable spot is for loading for yourselves. I can't tell you what the best is because everyone's going to feel a little bit different about that. So let's grab two. And again, you try to find kind of a center ground, which is not there. It's about here. And then throw your locking strap on there if you want to make your life easier. And load them on. There we go. And we can tuck it right in there. And like you can see, I've laid them all flat on this load. So now we have basically kind of like a platform that we can start putting the other logs on. So we can arrange it however we want. That's why I usually save the big ones so that we can use them on the bottom. That's why when we were processing, I said it's good to keep the big ones at the front and the short ones at the back. And I'll show you a technique that I use for loading up all of the logs on the same truck. So what I'm going to do now is, now that we have a base built on the bottom, let's actually grab that one a little more mid-weight there. So now what I'll do is I'll put one log to the very furthest end, and you want to be really gentle with these because if you slam it into the truck, it won't be very good for it. So I put one on the very far end. They have a tendency to roll a bit, but generally they should stay about there. Okay, so put one on the very, very far end of the load. So now we have one on here. And then we want to put one on the very closest end. And this is a nice big juicy one, so this should be perfect. We don't have a whole lot of logs, but you can build this up as much as you want when you actually do your own processing and cutting to put as many as you want on there. Okay, so now we're going to very gently put this very large log on here. And we want to leave it about there. That's okay, that won't hurt anything. Okay, so now what we've done is by putting one on this end and one on this end, we've created kind of this little hole in the middle here. And this is called a cradle. So if I want to now load smaller pieces of wood that may not be full length to the load, I can now tuck those logs into these little spots. So one thing, if you're brand new, not even new, I always lock the load. So I get in the truck and I hit L, and that puts locking straps on the load to hold it down. Another technique you can do if you don't like the placement, which I don't really like the placement of this big log, kind of want it back a bit. You can actually kind of cheat a little by pulling this log up to where you want it. If I can get that side. So I want it about there. So now my fork is kind of holding that log up to where I want it. And then I hit L. And that log is now locked in there. It won't move. So I have a little bit of a bigger space to move the logs. I could probably do the same with the other one, but I'm not too worried about it yet. Okay. So now we have that log locked in there. And we're ready to load the little ones. And like I said, that creates that cradle effect with that little bit of a hole. This is an advanced technique, so if you're not comfortable doing this stuff, don't worry about it. Just do what you're comfortable doing. I'm actually going to readjust that because I think I can do a better job on that one end. And again, you can be as obsessive compulsive as you want about your loading and making sure things are where you want. So I want this one to go that way a bit more. There we go. Yeah, that's better. And then we're going to just barely hair touch this log just to lift it up a little bit. There we go. Let's do that. There, now we can lock it. That'll be better. Yeah, that's better. See, now we got a little bit more of a space in there. All right. So now what I do, we don't have a whole lot of logs, but we can do this. So now what I would do is I would pick these logs up and I would put them in those little open spaces. So now one thing you're going to see is there's a big gap of spacing on the logs. So you see how the logs have, like, some are back and some are forward. You want those kind of flush for loading as best as possible. So you can either close your clam and go slide along the ground and push them all together like this. This is one technique. This is probably the easier technique for new people. Or you can grab them off the ground and move them around. Which I'm going to try to do. And then you can bring them together this way. Or if you want to do the advanced method, which lots of people do. So I'm going to put them all out of whack again here just to show you how we do this. So when they're all out of whack, they're a lot harder to load. You still can, but it's better if they're flush. So what a lot of people do, including myself, and I would recommend doing this with shorter logs, not the longer logs. What you can do is you can actually turn this pile onto its side this way. I'm going to turn my light on here. And open your grapple, and they will all kind of fall down. This is called penciling. So the effect is similar to that of when you take a bunch of pencils in your hand and just go drop them on the ground so that they're all even. So, although not the perfect looking grab, it is even. So then you can drop it on the ground if you want. Compare your ends. Like I said, they're not 100% perfect, but that's a lot better than what they were when they were all out of shuffle. So we're going to grab this little bundle here. I'm going to throw a locking strap on it just to keep them from wiggling about. Now, This is important because now you got to do the placement in between that gap. It becomes a little bit more of an accuracy thing. So as you can see, we're lined up pretty much with that gap. So now when we're putting them on the truck, we can unlock our load and we just kind of trickle them right into that space. And sometimes they go perfectly. Sometimes you got to push them around a little bit to get that space cleared up. Now, the other important thing when you're loading longs is you got to realize the butts obviously are bigger than the tops. So this end is fatter than this end. So now what's going to happen is you're going to get a bit of a slope where this end's going to be higher while this end's going to be lower, which is not super effective when you're trying to pile on all these logs. So we just did a drop on this side with the butts facing forward, but now we have a whole bunch of space in the back. As you can see, it slopes down. So the way to fix that is on your next grab of logs, which are going to be all of these ones, I guess. And we're going to do that cool little penciling technique where we drop them all together. And throw a locking strap on it so it doesn't go anywhere. Oops, I think I'm attached to my load here. Hold on one sec. Sometimes if you're parked too close to your machine, because these machines also lock down to trailers, you can lock them onto the truck itself. So you don't want that. There we go. That's good we covered that because that can happen. Don't park too close to your load when you're locking. Okay, so here we go. Now, like I said, we got the butts facing the opposite way on the back. So we want it just so they kind of feather in there. And we want to just gently drop all that in there. And now we kind of got that space filled. Now, like I said, if we had more of those big logs, we could keep building up that edge higher and higher and higher for cradling. But that's okay. We're doing just fine like this. So now we have that entire space that we had all the cradles built for filled. Now, normally what you do, like I said, is you would add another big log on this side, another big log on that side, and just keep building your thing up. We don't have that, so what we're going to do is we're just going to fill the gap. And because we have this one particular piece of wood that's very tiny, I'm just going to slip that piece right on this side here. And hopefully it stays in there. Just drop it right in there. Perfect. Sometimes you just got to maneuver stuff and hide it around. Do whatever works best for you. And again, you do not have to get this complex if you do not want to, but this is good for new people to know what's possible to do. So we can get that to slip down there. There we go. And then I'm going to put the butts again to the front because we just did a drop to the back. And we're going to put it right on there like that. Perfect. And like I said, we don't have enough trees to fill the entire load, but that gives you basically the idea of how to do it. You can go through and kind of push it and tap it with your claw closed. That's nice because it's got kind of this roundy bit, so you can kind of just roll the trees around to make sure you're happy with it. And then you get back in your truck and lock it. And that load is ready to go to the mill, just like that. So I'm not going to worry about this load. We're just going to park it off to the side because we're going to load up the short logs. And then we're going to do a quick mill unload, which is a very, very simple process. So we're going to leave this guy right over here. So that load's pretty well ready to go, and you can go unload it with whatever piece of equipment you're comfortable doing that with. And now we want to hook up to the short log trailer. Now this will be really easy because the longs, like I said, can get a lot more complicated than the shorts. The shorts are very much throw it on there and run for the hills. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this truck as close as I can to this side here. Actually, let's move our loader here. So again, with your loader, I generally try to park it in line with the pile of shorts. So I'll park about here so that I'm right facing directly with the pile itself. And then we want to pull our trailer up so we're just kind of alongside the truck. Just right along here. Perfect. So now when you're in your machine, you want to basically be able to reach between these bunks straight, like this. So now these are really easy in comparison to longs because there's no real messing around you got to do. You just grab your big piles of trees. You can use your locking strap if you want for the comfort of your logs not moving around. And you just load them in here like this. It's very straightforward. Like I said, shorts are a lot easier for loading, both for maneuverability and for the fact that you don't have to do any special cradling if you don't want to. Once you get really good, you can actually cradle these shorts into those long logs too, or those long loads, which is pretty brutal, but it's pretty cool too. So like I said, this is why I left such a small short pile, because there's not a lot of technique that really needs to go in for loading these. It's just slam them, get them on the truck. And like I said, if there was more here, we would just keep doing the same thing, and we would fill each of the bunks. Usually 5-meter logs are the best for this. Looks like we cut a little bit bigger than that. Want to make sure we lock our load with L, and then we can bring this to the mill. And we're actually going to do a quick little mill unloading operation to show you how the LeBaire works. And then we should be good to go. Loading, like I said, loading is really fun. It's really frustrating for lots of people because there is a lot of technique to it. You have to be really smooth with your controls and just take your time and not rush things. So if you guys are having troubles with it or it's getting frustrating for you, just work slow. Work really slow. It takes a long time to get good at that. Okay, so now we're at the mill. I generally park it kind of in line with my equipment. I always try to keep it as close to in line as possible. Make sure your load is unlocked. And then basically our operation of the LeBaire, it's similar to the loader, except it has an actual dangle head on it. So this head actually freely floats around. It's got like kind of a looseness to it. And these are called dangle heads. So comparing to our fixed head where we controlled it, this one just freely hangs on its own. It has a huge head on it for unloading pretty much any kind of wood you're thinking about. And it's very, very smooth. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go line it up with this bunk. Make sure your claws open all the way, as you can see here. You want to make sure you're on both sides. And then line it up so you're about that far down. If you have a full bunk, you probably won't be able to get a full bunk off this grab. But grab enough of it so that it fills up the bunk decently like that. Now again, you have the option to either use your locking straps to hold it on there or without. That's entirely up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. Then you just want to turn your load, and then we're going to drop it into the mill. So like I said, you can get a really decent grab with this guy, which is pretty cool. But it should make for a nice grip, and you'll get used to that. So let's turn a light on here. So as we bring it over to the mill, we have these panels on the sides that we can just drop it down into. So we unlock our straps, and then just open up your grapple and drop them in there. And then they will slowly feed down. You can give them a shove here if you feel they're hanging up. Eventually, they'll all work their way down there. And then you can go get eaten up in the mill. And then as they slowly get eaten, you'll notice in the top right-hand side of your screen, which you can't see on mine, you'll see your money start to go up as they sell. And this thing just grinds them all up and eats them for dinner. Very straightforward, very simple. Just like that. So yeah, that's the operation of the LeBaire, and you can do that with long logs or short logs. It's entirely up to you what you want to do, but it's very straightforward, very simple. I'm just going to tab back out here real quick. So yeah, same difference when you bring the long logs over there. You can either use the Laterno or you can use whatever unloader you want. You can even use these machines if you want to unload all those logs onto the mill. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. But yeah, that's basically the entire coverage of how to load. There are a million different techniques that I can't cover everything. Stuff you guys will just pick up on your own as you start to play with them more. But that's the basic operation of how to load stuff onto the trailers and get them to the mill. Right on. Okay, thanks, guys.